Hello, my name is Roy Kibler, and I'm the Superintendent of Property Maintenance here for the City of North Augusta and the City Arborist. And what we want to do here is we're going to explain and go through the proper process of planting a baldwin burlap tree. One of the first things we want to do is make sure, number one, we're planting the right tree in the right place, and we purchase good quality nursery stock. And as you can see, this is a Jefferson American elm that we've purchased, clear trunk up about 5 feet, which enables branches not to be in conflict with sidewalks or the greenway, roadways, garbage trucks, especially if it's planted in a planting strip. But we're going to go through the proper planting steps.
Jefferson American elm to our planting site today, and they're going to untie the strapping from the around the canopy, pull out the branches from where the tree was tied up at the nursery prior to planting. I've got Hector and Jesse and Raphael on our crew today, and they're going to cut that tie and cut any, we had a broken leader on the top of that tree that was damaged in transport from the nursery. We're going to cut that loose. It's easier to cut all of these, any broken or damaged branches while the tree's still on the ground before we stand it up. As they cut those, they'll open the canopy of the tree up and make sure they get all the branches kind of spread out, and there's no they'll find any other broken branches, and they'll take a pair of pruners and remove those at that time. One thing we want to make sure is that we plant the correct tree in the right place, and also make sure that we're call locates South Carolina 811 for your utility locates. Here we've got no utility issues in this location. The crew here, Jesse and Hector, are measuring the root ball. We're going to measure the root ball, make sure that the planting pit is at least a minimum of 2 to 2.5 times the width of the root ball. The planting depth, we want to ensure that our root flare is right at grade, and the root flare is where the lower part of the tree trunk flares out at the top of the root ball. And it's very important to make sure that that is at grade or slightly above and visible once the tree is planted. And as you can see, we're measuring our depth of our hole. Jesse's got the tape measure there, checking the depth. We'll plant ours a little bit. We try to make sure again that the root flare is right at grade when we're finished. You don't want to over excavate. If you over excavate, that soil that you have to fill in to bring your root flare back up to proper grade could possibly settle on the tree, could settle over time and cause that root flare to be too deep. Here we're using our backhoe to lift. You always lift from the straps on the root ball. Never tie any straps around the trunk of the tree. They'll place the tree in the planting pit as Hector will guide the tree straight up. Raphael's using the backhoe to help put the tree in position. And you always want to make sure that you straighten the tree, put the tree in the center of the planting pit. Again, the guys are, Jesse's going to check to make sure it's kind of somewhat in the center of the planting pit. And again, we'll use the board as our guide for grade. And we're checking, Jesse's pulling the burlap back, checking the root flare on the tree to make sure where exactly it's located. Many times there's soil on top of the root ball that you have to pull away to find the root flare. This root flare is right on the top of the root ball. And they'll backfill around the base of the root ball a little bit, tamp it with a tamp, and try and get that bottom firmly established so that they can walk away. Check for make sure the tree's straight in both directions, and then they'll start to remove all the burlap and the top ring of the metal basket we do remove. As you can see, Raphael and Jesse are starting to backfill a little bit around the very bottom as Hector maintains the tree straight. And he'll move the tree, adjust it as it needs to, and they'll put extra soil on one side or the other. And once the tree is firmly in place, again, you'll see they're tamping it with their foot. We walk it down. We backfill in lifts 4 to 6 inches at a time as we're backfilling the tree to help ensure we're getting, make sure there's no air pockets in there. You see Hector's gonna grab that sledgehammer and he'll pack in around the base of that root ball to ensure that soil is packed in tight around the base. That'll help keep the tree from moving. We normally don't stake our trees so that we can maintain that aesthetic appearance. The stakes are not something that is nice to look at, but also can be a trip hazard out in the public. But as you can see, Hector's tamping that soil down just around the bottom of the root ball, and we've removed the burlap and the top ring of the basket, and they're again packing that soil around the base of the root ball, and they're shoveling it all around, backfill all around the tree a little bit at a time, all around. And they're raking the soil out and on the top to make sure that everything is smooth and that the tree is at grade. They'll kind of walk it down and pack the soil in around the planting pit. And again, you always want to make sure you come back and check and make sure that your root flare is at grade, as Raphael's doing here. He sets the 2x4 down, and we're pretty much at grade, and the tree's level. And they'll draw a circle around the excavated area and place some mulch around that tree ring. And the mulch holds the moisture in place. After we put the mulch in place, we'll water. And again, you want to make sure you don't place mulch up against the trunk of the tree. That will hold moisture and could cause insect and decay. As you see, we leave the mulch away from the root flare, and so it's exposed. And watering newly planted trees, kind of a rule of thumb we find is anywhere between 8 and 10 gallons of water per inch caliper. This is a 3-inch caliper tree. We'll put about 30 gallons of water on this and continue to water this several times a week, depending on the weather. We'll check with a probe and water as the tree and the soil need water. And that would conclude our
our tree installation procedure, and look for more videos to come on some different maintenance projects that we have going on.